It was a quiet night in the village, the kind where the stars seemed to hold secrets only the moon could understand. And on that night, I sat alone on a rocky hill, speaking to the moon, not knowing that my words would change my life forever. This is the story of how I spoke to the moon, and how the moon listened. My name is Amina. I was born into a family full of love and warmth, or at least, that's how my childhood was supposed to be. But that all changed the day I lost my parents. I was just a little girl when they both passed away. It felt like one moment. They were there, telling me stories, feeding me, hugging me goodnight. And the next, they were gone. Just like that. I was left with nothing but memories of them, and a deep, aching emptiness. The world seemed much darker, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't fill that space. My aunt and uncle took me in, but it wasn't the same. They had their own children to care for, and I was just there. A reminder of a painful past they wished to forget. I was always the outsider. I slept in a small room at the back of the house. It was cold, dark, lonely. I would lay awake at night, listening to the sounds of my cousins laughing, while I felt like a shadow. Something that didn't belong. Each morning I woke up to do chores, fetching water from the river, sweeping the yard, working the fields. It never ended. No matter how hard I worked, I never seemed to matter to anyone. I wasn't their child, not really. They didn't love me like they loved their own. I would often catch myself looking at other families in the village, mothers and fathers who had children they cared for. I would watch them together and wonder, what would it feel like to have that kind of family? Why did I have to be different? But the truth was clear. I wasn't part of their world, and they weren't part of mine. One evening, after another long day of work in the fields, I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of my loneliness was too much to carry. I needed to get away from everything. I needed to be alone. So I walked out of the house, through the darkened village, and up a small hill that overlooked the valley. The air was cool, and the ground beneath my feet was rough and uneven. But I didn't care. I just needed space. I sat there for hours, staring at the sky. The stars were so bright, they felt close enough to touch. But it was the moon that caught my eye, full and round, shining so brightly that it seemed to light up the whole sky. And then, something strange happened. I began to talk to it. I had never spoken to the moon before, but somehow, that night, it felt like I needed to. "I'm so tired," I whispered into the night. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. I just want to be loved. I just want someone to care for me." The wind blew softly around me, but there was no response. Still, I felt as if the moon was listening, as if it understood what I was going through. And in that moment, something inside of me shifted. Maybe the world wasn't as lonely as I thought. Maybe there was someone out there that understood me. From that night forward, I returned to the hill whenever the weight of the world became too much to bear. I would sit under the moon, pouring out my heart. I didn't expect it to answer. I just needed to be heard, to feel like I wasn't invisible. And every time I spoke, I felt a little lighter, a little less alone. But no matter how much time I spent talking to the moon, life didn't get easier. If anything, it got harder. My aunt and uncle started giving me more chores. They barely acknowledged me. My cousins ignored me, as if I wasn't even there. The other children in the village made fun of me too. "Orphan, nobody," they would whisper. They didn't understand what it felt like, to be unloved, to be a shadow in your own life. And their words cut deeper than any blade ever could. One evening, after a particularly painful day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I ran up to the hill, my heart heavy with sorrow, my eyes swollen from crying. The moon was already high in the sky, its light casting long shadows across the land. "Why?" I shouted into the night. "Why does it have to be this way? Why am I so alone? Why does no one care about me?" The wind picked up around me, swirling in the air like it was alive. I could feel something different this time, a presence. "Why do you cry, Amina?" a voice asked, soft and gentle, as if it was coming from the moon itself. I froze, my heart racing. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice trembling. But there was no one in sight. "I hear you," the voice continued. "I have always heard you." Tears spilled from my eyes as I sank to my knees. The moon's voice was so soothing, so real. It was like it had always been there, watching over me, even when I didn't know it. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. The moon had been listening to my pain all along, even when I thought no one else could hear me. "I am here," the voice said. "You are not alone, Amina. You are loved. Even in your silence, you have always been loved." From that night on, I continued to visit the hill. I didn't need to speak anymore. The moon already knew what was in my heart. It became my companion, my confidant. Slowly, I began to change. I started to see the beauty in life, even in the smallest things. The warmth of the sun in the morning, the way the earth smelled after rain, the songs of the birds. And though I still felt the sting of loneliness, I no longer felt like it was the end of the world. One day, something unexpected happened. My aunt came to me. She was never the type to show affection, but this time there was something different in her eyes. "Amina," she said quietly, "I've been thinking. We've been hard on you. We haven't treated you like we should have. I'm sorry." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My aunt, who had always treated me like a stranger, was apologizing. For the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered to her, like I was finally seen. Looking back now, I understand the lesson the moon taught me. It wasn't just about the words I spoke, or the tears I shed. It was about finding strength in the silence, about realizing that love doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from within, and sometimes it comes from the moon when you least expect it. The moon didn't just listen to me, it gave me the courage to listen to myself, to believe in my own worth, even when the world didn't. So if you ever feel lost, if you ever feel like the world doesn't understand you, just remember, there's a moon in the sky, always listening, always waiting for you to speak. And when you do, you might just find the strength you need to carry on.
Do you think this really happened? Leave your thoughts below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to NEB'S Story Tales for more captivating tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next story.